So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the EOcafe. As you can see, I'm still trying to work out my my background in the new house, but this is the second EOcafe in my new location, at least. So we're getting there. So as you know, EOcafe is we say where the EO community meet. It's a regular series of discussions with prominent people from the EO services community or who are actors in the community in different ways. And our goal is to provide an opportunity for people to meet and to discuss relevant topics linked to the EO business. It's all very informal. I think most of you have been with us before anyway, but as I have a chat with our guest, and everyone listens in and can join in later on as we go through the time. 45 minutes to 1 hour, all very informal, and even more informal chat at the end if you wish. Just a reminder, please leave microphones off unless I explicitly ask you to join us. But you can leave cameras on. As you wish. Of course, you may not want us to see you, but you can leave cameras on. It adds to the ambiance. And any questions you have, just put them in the chat, and I call on you later to place them if they're a question, or just put comments in the chat if you wish. So today I'm very happy to be joined by Rebecca de Sancho Mayoral from the European Innovation Council. Rebecca is an advisor and fund manager in the council. It's very new, a new organization, and I think you and certainly I will be interested to hear more about how it's working, how it's set up, and how it can possibly help the industry, to help your business. But before getting into detail, maybe I just invite Rebecca to say a few words about herself, background, the mission of the council, and well, more particularly her role at the council. So, Rebecca.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for the invitation, of course, to EIRS and to all the participants. Well said, Rebecca de Sancho Mayoral. So by my long surname, I'm Spanish, but living in Brussels for the past 15 years, working in different policy areas. And for the last 7 years in innovation, startups, internationalization. And since the creation of the European Innovation Council within the European SMEs Agency, EIC, I'm part of the team of the European Innovation Council Fund and Research and Innovation Investments. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you. I hope I can bring all the knowledge across this last year and to all the participants. A little bit about myself. Well, besides that, I try also to push for more women innovators, and some actions are ongoing with the EIC on that. And I oversee the portfolio of space companies in the EIC Fund together with other colleagues, creating synergies. And that's basically the reason why I'm here today. And I'm happy to push for more support to the space sector. So yeah, with that, maybe we can start, Paulina, with the slides. I'll go through a few slides and then we'll go back to the fire chat and the coffee.
Okay, thanks. So there we go.
Yeah, so if you go to the next one, please. So I wanted to start with this one. Well, today, as I was saying just before you all connected, yesterday was a very important day because it was the announcement of the Work Program 2022 for the European Innovation Council, announced by our Commissioner Maria Gabriel. And she mentioned in her words that Europe has the ambition to become the next unicorn factory for European innovation. So it was very important for me to start setting the grounds, what's holding us back from this to happen immediately. Well, we probably all know the ones participating, but I'll just touch upon the area of performance. We know that there is a lot of research going on, but this is not translated into innovations that then go to market. Then there is a lack of funding and there are financial gaps. And across all the last years, there's been efforts, and yeah, we'll touch upon that during the chat. All the efforts that are being done at the European Innovation Council and other partners to help scale up those high-risk innovative startups. And within the innovation ecosystem, also at national and local level, the ecosystems are fragmented. So it's there is a need to include all this. And in innovation ecosystems, also the European Commission is taking action, and there are some communications that will come on that respect. And yeah, if you can go to the next one, please. So it's just to say a few words in general about the EIC. It's the most ambitious innovation initiative with a 10 billion program, of course, to identify and to develop these scale-up breakthrough technologies to disrupt the innovations in Europe. It's unique in the world because it combines the research on emerging technologies with the accelerator for startups and SMEs, and for those companies scaling up. It has the novelty since 2020, the creation of the European Innovation Council Fund, so the largest VC in deep tech, with over 3 billion. It's innovator-centric. Why? Because it's steered by a board of leading innovators, and we made sure that there was diversity in terms of countries representation and also gender balance in the new board. And with a proactive approach and flexible funding. That's the idea, to help the startups and to enhance the European innovation ecosystem. So yeah, with this, I think, yeah, if you can go to the next one. I'll present briefly, and again, we can discuss more in the chat, the three main instruments, which are the Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator. I will just mention that in the case of the Pathfinder, it is for early stage research on, of course, breakthrough technologies with grants from 3 to 4 million. And is the successor, for some of you that will know, the FED Open and the FED Proactive. The other instrument of funding is the Transition, that is for technology maturation, which is from the proof of concept to the validation, and with business and market readiness, with grants up to 2.5 million. And the Accelerator, and if you want to, we can talk more about that. So you can stop sharing the slides and we go to the informal chat.
Okay, well, maybe we'll come back to some of the slides as we go on. So just the background of the EIC, because I think it mainly came out of, it was the SME instrument, wasn't it? Which was, exactly. I think, quite a successful instrument with the Commission.
Yeah. I can give you, well, just some figures of what it was, the past, no? What it is, the pilot phase. So from 2018 to 2020, there were 3.5 billions. And then this moved to the EIC fully fledged program. Well, the applicants and the beneficiaries have been startups and spin-out companies. You can find all the information, and I can share all these links with you. There is a data hub, and the EIC data hub has collected all this information as well as other links. One is Cordis, which has all the information of what it was, the previous SME instrument. So to give you some successes of this accelerator pilot, in 2009, there were 293 startups and SMEs, with over a budget of 1.4 billion with equity funding. So again, I repeat that this was the novelty in 2020, this EIC Fund, and 159 were selected to receive this funding for 600 million. Then there has been the investments, agreements, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to enter into so much detail, but just to tell you that all these startups, they managed to attract close to 9.6 billion in investments. So that's already very good. And from all this factory, there are already 4 unicorns and 91 centers.
Okay, so that's 9.6 billion on top of the investment that was made by the EIC in the first place.
It triggered this 9.6 billion of investment.
Yeah, so better than a 10-to-1 ratio. That's pretty good. So the SME instrument was really about grants, if I remember rightly. So one of the big difference, or one of the big differences, is that you can take equity stakes in companies as well.
Yeah, that's exactly why the EIC Fund had been created initially in the pilot. What you will see in the program, there will be some adjustments and some changes. We are still in the process. So just for everyone to understand, in the pilot, we were under the policy framework of Horizon 2020, and now we are under the policy framework of Horizon Europe. So this had to go through votes and all the committees. And there was a decision to make some changes, but for the beneficiaries it would be the same. It's just that it will be communicated as we speak, because there will be some changes. For the relevance, what I can say from this equity investment. So maybe this brings me to the different funding of the accelerator, because depending on the maturity of the project, they will receive, or they will be awarded different funding. No, it can be the grant, it can be the blended. If they manage to demonstrate in their application their need to, so after they go to TRL 8, that they will go to TRL 9, and then their technology readiness to go to market. No, so that's mainly the novelty. And why? It's because companies, as we were saying before, they lack funding. So it's very important to fill this gap. So that was the reason why the EIC Fund was created. And it's to de-risk, it's not to disrupt the market. It's to de-risk those companies that are potentially, could be, again, unicorns, and have the potential to scale up.
So it's the companies that come to you and say, we're looking for a grant, or we're looking for equity, or do you drive what the balance is between grant and equity?
That's a very good question. So there are in the pilot, there was a new platform for submission, and there are 2 stages, the short proposal, and then it goes to full proposal. Then the companies in the selection or pre-selection, they go through interviews with a jury of experts, from investors to experts in the field of the technology. And while they go, the companies, through this screening, the startups, they have applied from either grant only. So I can give you the 4 names, which is grant only, grant first, the blended finance, or equity only. So that's also a difference from the SME instrument or the pilot, no? But and then what it can happen during the jury may see the need that the company have maybe applied for both blended finance, and is not already there for them be able in that program, that application that the company presented, to go and scale as quickly, and perhaps gives only grant first. So there are different scenarios where the jury may decide. I would say there are only in some cases, and it's about the company to verify the eligibility criteria and to decide, which is the right one to apply for.
So the company makes a first choice and application, and then there's a discussion with the jury, the evaluators, to say, we think this is good, we think that it would be better if you did this. Okay. And scale, I think it was in the slide, but just to go back, the sort of the scale of grants or the scale of equity investment.
Yeah, so the ones for the accelerator, for the blended finance, the grants are up to 2.5 million, and the equity investment is up to 15 million. And there is a novelty. I took note somewhere, I forgot now the name. I know, I have it here. So with the new program, the new work program, there is an action that is called New EIC Scale Up 100 Initiative, and it will be to support 100 SMEs. It will be like a fast track to support those SMEs in deep tech with a great potential to be the next unicorns. And which means that they have a valuation of 1 billion. So that's also a novelty. I don't want to forget about it.
So something I wanted to ask you, you threw the term in again then, deep tech. What do you mean by deep tech? What's deep tech?
I know this is the, the difficult word. What is exactly deep tech? So there are several elements that I would say relate to when we talk about deep tech. Let's go back to what we are looking for. So we are looking for startups and SMEs that want to scale up with high impact innovations. And what happened to these innovations? That they have a potential either to create new markets because they didn't exist, or they can disrupt the existing ones. So they need to demonstrate that this innovation, it's falling under all this, that they really need this financing means of funding that we are giving in order to potentially either disrupt a market or are creating a new one. And I know it's very it's very difficult to define. But what I would say for the applicants is to refer to there's also in our FAQs the technology readiness level, TRLs. So I would very much focus on that and see also examples of startups that have received funding. There is information that it's public, not for the ones who have already signed and are in the past in our database. You can see examples of what it was funded. But in general, again, going back to your question, I would say that it's really worth funding, and it's a novelty that and we have an impact. I will say something on the accelerator. You have open call or challenge, and you also have in other funding schemes. Open call, so without a thematic or a sector. And when you have a challenge, it's coming from policy, it's policy driven. And it's very important that the applicant defines the impact that is addressing, and in this case, what it's important for the challenge specific topics. So,
okay. So the innovation is largely technical innovation, technology innovation, but I guess you would also consider innovative ways to promote or to market or to go to market as part of the innovation package. You mentioned sectors and challenges. I know that you've had a lot of emphasis on the biotech sector. given the announcement made yesterday, yesterday or the day before, about European autonomy or less dependence in chips, I imagine that can also be a high priority area for you. What about space? How is space perceived in the EIC? Is it a sector which could be singled out, or is it apply with alongside all the rest?
So that's a very good question. And I did my homeworks, and I was checking for the past success stories or companies that were in the portfolio, and there weren't so many.
No.
In what is exactly space related. So if you go to the data hub, you may find the same that I'm giving you. Around 6 would be really until 2020. And some others are in drones. So I was not counting the ones in drones. But the good news is that in the last cutoff, those companies that have been awarded and now in the negotiation of the grant process or signature of the grant, and then the equity investments are 5. So only for 1 year. So what does it mean? I think many things, that all the actors, and I'm telling from our side, from the EIC, are connecting to other partners. Like I can give you the example of creating synergies with the European Space Agency, bringing EIC funded companies to their investors forums. So that's one of the things we can do. We can also create synergies with partners like you and other European agencies in Spain, EUPSA, and more on the regulation side. So helping the company not only on one side, but helping on many aspects. And specifically the question you're asking me, I don't know if in the future would be a dedicated challenge specific in the EIC for space, but what I know is there other complementary funding actions, no? And for instance, the Cassini yep. Fund from DigiDefis.
Yeah. So, I think, I mean, we certainly at the beginning of the SME instrument, we were disappointed at the sort of success or lack of success of companies from the sector. I think there were some lessons learned. I mean, obviously it's about data. It's all about data. So it's the applications of the EO technology are so very broad and are often embedded in other sectors that it's perhaps sometimes difficult to position what companies who are members of ERSC are doing in relation to your broader view of the picture. So do you expect to have challenges linked to sort of Earth observation or space activities?
For this year, no, but I cannot tell you for the next years. There is also a possibility in the program to fund more than companies of so in specific areas of funding the same I was mentioning before. There is another initiative that is called for 15 million funding specific, so it could be, but this is very much political in the case that is this decision is taken. But it could be that we also see the way with colleagues from the Directorate General of Space Industry, so DigiDefis. And so I mean, things can happen. I don't see it now immediately for the accelerator, but we will see also how many applications we get. And as I'm telling you, there was an increase, very important from the previous experience of the pilot. So that's very good news. What I also felt like attending some other events, space related, perhaps there is more outreach from our side, like today, to do, to reach to the applicants. There was one organized in Andalusia by one of the agencies responsible on space. So I think that's the key to bring it and to make it more understandable. So with this good news, there will be the on the 22nd again of February, the beneficiaries can join the EIC work program session, so they will understand better also the funding mechanisms and the evaluation process.
Okay. If there are links to that we can promote, then please let us have them. We'll put them in the chat and we'll distribute afterwards. We've talked a lot about grants and equity sort of on the financial side, but actually you do quite a lot more for the successful applicants.
Yeah.
Can you sort of give a little bit more of your portfolio of support activities?
Yeah, that's a question that I like very much, because it is not only about the funding. We have business acceleration services that it was in the slides that will be shared with the participants. And this is the beauty of accompanying the companies during the journey. What is true is if you only give funding, there is very little area left to succeed as it could. So the business acceleration support, what it integrates is coaching for the companies, events that could be corporate events with potential corporates in specific topics, or could be with investors. I attended one of them, and could be again investors from the European Space Agency, but other investors, trade fairs to bring companies. Like recently, there was one mission to Dubai and another one to Las Vegas, to the CES event. So just to give you some example of the big events and trade fairs, where selection of EIC companies. So once they are in the portfolio, we accompany them also in connection to the ecosystem, creating, as I was saying before, in the space area, links with ESA or with EUPSA or other agencies in the space sector. And what it relates to the investment, this is very important, because until the moment you get to the investors and the equity side, and this is a big question for many startups, how will it look like? And if it's your first time going through the investors, we've learned from the pilot, and we have a platform dedicated with selected investors, and we intend to grow more for the future, also in specific areas like space, for instance. And the companies can share their pitches with the investors, and there will be also different activities around that connection to the investors. So that's very important to help the company not only on one side in internationalization support. There are also some actions that we will take to help the companies in their internationalizations and go-to-market strategy.
As I mentioned the other day, we have specific activities at the moment in relation to Australia and Chile, where we're linking up with local partners and trying to help companies from our sector, not just members, but obviously our goal is to really help the members, but others are eligible as well, to make links in those two countries, and we would very much like to extend that further. It's a learning experience for us as well. Similarly with for the accelerators. There are a couple of questions in the chat, but perhaps before going on to that, there are specific calls. Are the calls at specific times, or is it an open call?
I did also my homeworks. It was not announced until yesterday. For the accelerator, there will be 3 days, or 3 days, 3 different dates, the end of March, and then, wait, I need the accelerator. I'll come back to that. Then for the Pathfinder is March and June, and the transition as from March. So the accelerator, the first one is end of March, and then I think it's June and October, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay, but it's like the SME instrument, where it's an open call, a rolling call, but with specific points at which you'll take everything you've received up to that and do an evaluation and and work on those. Yeah.
But the evaluation system changed. So from the past, you also have the possibility to submit your short proposal at any time. So that's, yeah, I can send you more details on that.
Yeah, please. That's what I was getting. That's what I was getting at. Is it that you can submit the proposal at any time, but then there are fixed dates when everything's gathered together and evaluated that's been received up to then. And then if people are a day late, then they fit into the next cycle. But they can be a day late and they're not rejected, but they just get delayed 3 months or 6 months or whatever the cycle is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to be attentive to that. Yeah. So I checked, and it's March, June, and October. So I was correct. That will be exact. So that will be the day that the application, needs to be submitted.
Okay, and the sort of proposal and the evaluation follows typical Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe processes, or is there a different process?
There is a first short list of proposals. So some of them will not go to the interview stage.
Right.
Yeah. So there is this, but in that sense, I mean, the difference is the platform and how it's this platform open that they can, how they can apply for it.
And it's a one-stage process. It's not multiple stages.
It is multiple because then you have the interview phase.
Oh, okay. No, I was thinking of some of the instruments where you submit a short proposal which are evaluated, and there's a down selection based on the short proposals. And if you pass that, you're invited to put in a long proposal. But I assume it's probably a bit lighter than that for the for your.
No. It is exactly like this, and then you have the interview phase.
Okay. Let's bring some others in. Giacomo, you were the first to put a question in. It was one I would have asked, but I'll let you you ask the question. Giacomo, you want to come in?
Yes. Thank you very much, Geoff, and thank you for very interesting cafe. My question is if when Rebecca explained the blended financing approach and the grants particularly, are the amount of grants is calculated as a percentage of costs exposed by applicants in a business plan, or how the grants up to the ceiling that you mentioned are calculated? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Giacomo, and good luck with the application. Well, you certainly have this description of budget that you need to integrate to the proposal, so the financial side, and what it means is cap at 2.5. The grant is that EU contribution cannot go more, so you really need to make your calculations across the budget in order to get to these numbers right. And you need to. Maybe I extend too much, but okay, you have the different work packages with your milestones. So you present that when you present your proposal, you present the financials, you present some annexes on ethics and security, and then the pitch deck. So that's a compilation of, but pay attention that you are putting the right numbers. And when you submit the proposal.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Giacomo. There's Emmanuel, you've put quite a long comment in the chat, but I think there's a question in there as well about link between the EIF and EIC. Do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah. So hello?
So, do you hear me?
Not very well.
Okay.
Okay, that seems a bit better. Carry on.
My question was related to EIC Fund and EIF, the European Investment Fund, which was and is supporting a number of space funds in Europe. So what are the links between those two? Thanks.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It's a good question because we go back to the Cassini for the space. Well, first in general, for you to understand what we are talking about in the EIC and the startups that either receive the grant or even the equity only is the level of maturation and development and how they would need more funding as they grow. So different actors will come when this startup is growing. So probably the funding and the maturity of the EIF is higher, I would say, but in very simple words, than what the EIC is funding. They are very much partnering with us in many, many aspects. There is, I give you the umbrella of the program that is called InvestEU, in which the EIF will have equity. And then, for you to understand what is happening in the past. So the Cassini, it was coming from the policy of space of the Commission. That is a high level priority. Since 2020, there is the Directorate General that I mentioned, DigiDefis, Space Industry and Defense Industry. And our Commissioner Breton made emphasis of backing the space sector. That was in 2020. Announcing 100 million financing investment. So there are 4 funds already of this pilot that in space tech. The venture funds are Orbital Ventures, UBC, VS Squared Ventures, and Premium Space. So those were part of the pilot that is called InnoFin Space Equity Pilot. This is, and it's the first ever backed equity pilot. So it will be for equity. So forget about the grants, that's EIC. And this will be only for equity. And it's some of the results I can give you of mobilized in this pilot, 300 million of investment capacity. And now what do we have as from 2020? The Cassini, that will implement this ambition of the Breton's call for 1 billion. And then this Cassini, that is called Seed and Growth Funding Facility. It's a fund of funds. So what means there are venture capital and late stage private equity funds together. And well, obviously the objective is to improve the capacity to grow of the startups. So to inject more funding. And how you would understand or they will assess is the TRL levels and the stage of development of the startups and SMEs that are applied for this Cassini Growth Fund. I can send also to Geoff more details. And if needed, contacts across the Commission on that.
Yeah, feel free to use this as a channel to communicate, but I'm sure you'll have others contacting you directly, whatever. Yeah.
No, I double check with my colleagues from DEFIS, so I have relationships with them. I don't want to say something that is wrong. And I'm happy to connect if needed and share more information. So for the startups, I would say they need a certain level of development to be ready to apply for this funding, but they can see from the pilot how it works, this InnoFin Space Equity Pilot. And again, if I were the startup, what I would look like, who are the ones who receive the funding, to see, to understand better the states of the companies.
Okay, Emmanuel, is that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. I would be interested in the funds of funds from Cassini, if you can share information. But that's super complex, and that's why we are launching the Space Finance and Insurance Hub in order to explain how it works. Thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
There's a very topical question from Flavia de Souza, one that we consider quite a lot. Flavia, come on in.
I'm coming. Hello.
Good, great.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's a very nice presentation. Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's very interesting, all the information you're giving. So I don't know if I understood correctly. Please correct me if not. I think in the very beginning you said something related to some initiatives that the ECD Fund does to kind of try to have a balance in relation to, let's say, a gender gap in this investment. So to whom you are giving these fundings, how you select the companies. And if I understood correctly, I would like to know what are exactly the actions that are taking into the selection. So when you are in the process of the selection to give the funding to these companies to kind of reduce or even close the gender gap, if there are a lot of women apply, if there are any incentivations, or if there is a specific team who takes care that all the process goes like in a very diverse and inclusion way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flavia. Yeah, so I start from what is also the mandate or commitment of the commissioner, looking into innovation and research from a gender perspective. In general, there are in innovation awards for women innovators. That's every year. And I know this year there will be an increase in the prices. There is a dedicated grant that was a novelty last year, and it will continue of 75K. It was the first pilot last year, and will continue Women Tech EU for women innovators. And in relation to the EIC, we have, I would say, two layers. One is the balance in the jury members, selection processes of the startups, and our own structure in the board, as I said at the beginning. So that was one side. And when it comes to the startups, in the past, it was called prioritization, to have the opportunity to have more women come into the interview phase. This doesn't go against, of course, excellence. So that's, we always have these discussions that is very much questioned when we try to introduce this positive action. But this is how it has been done to get more with the same level of excellence. There is no specific funding from the EIC. The one in Women Tech EU is coming from another program, this 75K. I can tell you it's not a criterion right now. In research applications, it is in relation to institutions, research institutions. It was also a novelty of the last of this last program. But you get questions sometimes at, of course, at the jury to see the composition of the teams, and somehow this is a complex, I would say, evaluated and assessed in a comprehensive way in the teams. But it's not a specific criterion that we have in the evaluation. It's more to get more women to the to the interview phase. What else do we have? I forgot one, of course, and I was part of the design program that was for the pilot, the Women Leadership Program. So a specific program that was launched and will continue was given the first cohort for 50 women who are part of the EIC portfolio, either from other programs, Transition and the previous ones, or the EIC, and they being part of this Women Leadership Program. That's a comprehensive reply.
And I mean, you have coaching and mentoring, but I think one of the key steps is what you've referred to is, you know, the board, the administrative, your activity committee has a certain gender balance, and that all helps to sort of to promote rather than favouring women in the business sector. So I think.
I have forgotten a few actions that we are undergoing, but it's not some of them are not totally official. From the program, yeah, what I can say as, no, I'm thinking if I can say some of it. Yeah, the index, yes, it was announced in the work program. So there will be a study in an index to understand better the ecosystem and the reasons for this. Yeah, I don't know how to call it. I don't want to call it inequalities, but to see what's the status, because the last reports were from many years ago and they don't give the right information.
Yeah, I guess it's more about ending a negative discrimination that is the goal. Remember, anybody, please, everybody follow the chat, because there's quite a few links being posted in the chat that you may find useful. And if you have any further questions, please post them in the chat. We've still time to take one or two. But I want to come back to something that I didn't ask right at the beginning, because it might have taken us off on the wrong track. And I don't know whether you can answer it, but your first slide talked about an innovation gap, a gap in innovation in Europe. And I was intrigued by that, how you're measuring. How do you perceive there's a gap? How do you measure there's a gap in Europe compared to the US or other parts of the world? What are your sort of thoughts and criteria for considering that?
Yeah, I didn't want to do a lengthy presentation, but I can send you, I can add to my slide before you share with the audience. There is this valley of death.
Yeah, I'm familiar with, yeah.
Yeah, but also the comparison with US and China. And I think this was the wake-up call for many at high level and political level to take more actions in these last programs. And how do we measure the gap? Well, what I can tell you is that at the commissioner level, there were 3 groups last year. One is specific on tackling the scale-ups and understanding, this gap. What you see, if you talk to startups when they need to grow and they look for funding, and then they go to other means of funding and they don't have either the leverage to receive this funding or enough traction, and how difficult it is. So
that's more about mobilizing the finance and easing the finance side rather than measuring the innovation. I mean, there's an awful lot of studies around SMEs. I mean, and I think we would certainly agree Europe, I certainly feel Europe's starting to really get its act together around supporting startups and supporting SMEs. You know, there are a lot of different accelerator programs and incubators in different sectors, and in the space sector, there's a lot happening. But
I will give you one
about time. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking because I cannot give you the maths of how this graph was designed, what it was behind the graph, but I can give you one example of one of the companies we finance, and they came to tell us that they were very successful in the end with the grant of the SME instrument. So I went to check, I wasn't there at the time, I went to check the company, and they had gone IPO in the US. So if the company lives to, I think the gap comes when you could measure by how many of them you supported, and unfortunately we didn't manage to retain.
Yeah, that's a shame. But again, it's coming back to availability of finance and public markets. I think. Sorry, I've lost the thread of where I was going now.
Yes. Very coffee-inspired chat.
Yeah. No further questions coming in. I think we certainly are looking to try to put a spotlight on small companies and helping small companies. We have a small companies forum where we try to enable networking of the smaller companies, because sometimes peer experience can be extremely valuable, and to learn, talking with someone, I'm having this problem. Oh yeah, I had that problem and I solved it this way. So that's certainly something we're doing to try to help there. And we can certainly talk more about that in the future. The thread I was going to say was, what you said earlier was the multiplier from the grants to the external finance coming in, and that, of course, is a very clear and good key indicator. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're making me think how we could improve our collaboration.
Good.
That's good. No, but also, I know they are very busy, but success stories, no? Bringing success stories was nice. And the end result that we all want. To hear, as much as I know that they have a lot of challenges now with supply chain disruption, COVID, there's a lot of things going on. And you see daily, sometimes they have a plan when they started and the plan changes because it's a natural.
So have you, I mean, the impact of COVID on the work you're doing and the companies that you're supporting, what lessons or what have you really seen there? We're familiar with the supply chains. We heard the announcement about European chip fabrication and doing more there. What for you has, or for EIC has changed or has been driven by the COVID crisis?
Depending on the specific sector, I'm thinking back to 2020, the very beginning, and I was overseeing one company in the health sector that couldn't do clinical trials because it was not possible to meet. So so some others had other issues. They had the problem of the clinical trial that was stopped. There has been many issues. I think we've continued the support as much as we could, and in some cases, imagine there is the accelerator on the grant. They have asked for an amendment to extend the grant duration because they couldn't complete it in time. So obviously, in those concrete cases, we are flexible. So when it's there is a reason behind, then obviously we are flexible. I guess we cannot do more than what we all do, but to continue in these COVID times. And that's a little bit.
I guess there's a more readiness to accept strategic thinking and thinking perhaps more longer term, driven by maybe not just by COVID, but also by climate change and the Green Deal that's coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, we certainly feel that the sector, the space sector, but specifically the Earth observation services sector, has a very large role to play, which is still largely potential. We see so many instances where there are still barriers to the uptake of services. A lot of it is in the public sector. It's a market where 50% of the market is with public sector organizations, which are difficult to change their processes and difficult to introduce new technologies into them. So this is an area where I think a lot could be done in partnership with USPA as well, and maybe with others. So that can be a topic to explore in the future. Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. Any further questions? They're very quiet today.
Normally they ask more questions. I got bored, or
I don't know. We've had a number of good comments coming up, but no.
I'll share all the information as that was requested and more than I can think about. The evaluations.
Okay, so Andreas Muller's come in. Andreas, you could come straight into the live, so please come in.
I'm just trying to get myself started.
Yeah. Good.
Hello, everybody. Just one question that came up in my mind when I was thinking about say paperwork overhead that we all used to when it comes to research programs raised by the European Union. So the question would be how intense is the paperwork that one has to do in terms of reporting and justifying with respect to EIC? How would you rank your organization compared to others?
Thank you, Andreas. I know that we don't like this word or the word.
It's a bit provocative. I'm sorry for that.
Living it through myself and coming from the private sector in my previous life. So that's quite of a change. No, seriously. So I can tell you about the accelerator. Imagine the length of the grant. The equity might continue if you also receive equity, and you continue with the investment. But the length of the grant would be around 18 months. So you have two progress meetings, and then a closing one with the final balance of payment. I would say that it's I didn't see it so heavy because I was more in the side of the equity. So of course I was not part in the last year with the beneficiary on the grant side. I don't know very much the joint research programs, how they are, but this is from what I know from other grant programs that I've been involved in the commission, is very similar. You have to report on all the information that you have indicated in your proposal, in the budget, and basically the evolution of the project. So whatever you establish as work packages, and if you reach the milestones. So I think your question maybe is more about the financial side of how to submit all this documentation, or was about this, the different steps? It's
more or less both. Actually, of course, we have to do some financial reporting and feedback, but also on like progress, technical progress, milestones, and so on and so forth. So all that is also implemented.
So it's like in two periods and 2 steps, and then you have an external expert that is an expert in the topic, who's the one assessing these progress meetings together with a colleague from the grant side. And if it's connected to equity, then a colleague like me would be also part of this assessment.
You would then accompany the company, and you would take a board position on the company in return for equity. So that was in the pilot. Some of us would have a board observer position, and it was the case. It has been my case. Okay. As we speak, I don't know what it will happen in the future, because there are these slight changes, of how the equity will be managed. But again, this for the beneficiaries, it's not an issue. It is more an internal coordination and implementation rather than for the beneficiaries. And being happy to be observer in 2 companies, one being on the Internet of Things, Hyber, that company, and the other one related with another product, a Norwegian company. And so is there any? Sorry, is there any view of how long the equity would be held, or what the exit process is?
So the principle and the mandate of the EIC Fund is what is called a patient investor. It is not there for the returns, but for the impact of the technology and the project. As we are talking about the pilot, I cannot tell you, then we would be foretellers. Okay. But what I see, it's maybe it's something useful for the participants. If you never had experience with this equity, there are different stages, and you don't necessarily need to enter immediately to the equity. First, maybe you receive a convertible loan, and then there are other steps for the equity. So this very much depends on the readiness of the company to absorb also and the traction, for two things, no? The traction, commercial traction, and then the capacity of the company to absorb, and the proof that it needs this funding to scale up quickly. So it could happen that a grant doesn't consider that it needs the equity in the first 12, 18 months. And then, but still the conversations need to start earlier. Why? Because this takes long. First, you need to talk to the investor. You need to talk to them to show them where you are, how you're scaling, and how you're getting traction in the market. So this process, and sometimes you get these questions because also the process needs to go through the board in the end of the EIC. And well, first to the investment committee and then to the board. And this is could be shorter in some cases or longer. One thing I didn't mention on the investment, there is a lead investor. The EIC Fund is not the lead investor. So there's another investor that needs to be the lead investor. We come pari passu, so it needs to be a matching of the investment. And yeah, again, needs to be approved by the board. So it's important also for the company, because I guess it's very difficult to see it when you're starting the process, but you need to think of the following steps. And if you want to take them, or otherwise how you are going to get this funding, that would be crucial for your scaling up.
Yeah. Okay, I have further questions, but I think we should draw it to a close there. I mean, I hope that there are a number of companies from our sector, people from our call, but others as well, who will apply and submit proposals. And if that is the case, and there is some successful or unsuccessful for that matter, it would be interesting to come back and discuss again in 12, 18 months time, sort of the experiences that have been gained and the lessons. So I think we should make a note to try to come back to you. I hope we'll have a regular dialogue anyway, but come back in 12, 18 months and have another session like this to talk about the lessons. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a very interesting discussion. I really did appreciate it. And our next EOcafe are always every other Thursday, so the next one will be on the 24th of February. Unfortunately, I can't announce what it will be. We had this problem last time, and we seem to be rather unlucky at the moment with various factors causing us to have to postpone or move participation in cafes, whether it's illness or different priorities that come up. So we have been a little bit unlucky, but the next EOcafe will be on the 24th of February. We've got about 3 different backups on this one. Our primary idea has unfortunately not manifested, but we have a number of other possibilities. So as soon as we can, we'll announce what the subject will be. But rest assured, there will be EOcafes every 2 weeks from now on, and we hope not to have to miss a period. So it remains just to offer a final thanks to Rebecca. If you want to say a final few words, Rebecca, before we sort of leave the informal part and go to the very informal part, and please feel free to do. What we normally do afterwards is that anybody can just chip in. Yeah, microphones are on and anybody can talk. So please, if you have something finally to say, then now's the time.
I would like to thank all the participants, and again to you, Geoff, and to Delphine for the invitation. And I really hope we will continue, because I see as I go through different partners in the space sector that it's super important that we connect to each other. But for the beneficiaries, I have a Mac, you don't see because I put the background, I think it's written, don't panic. So the same, I put the don't panic.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, yeah.
For the presentation, I think it's good to not panic when you apply for the EIC. And also something that I always think when I get a question sometimes, because the success rate is very low compared to the number of applications received. So I always think this is a marathon. but I like tennis. So for me, it would be a grand slam. So when someone goes to a grand slam like Nadal, that he won the Australian Open, he wouldn't even believe he was going to win the grand slam. So whatever you do in this process, it will help you to be where you want to be tomorrow. So that's what I would like to, my last words.
A light for tennis and for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, don't forget to bring your towel. Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody wishing to join in, then please do.